There are no accidents in your life. If these words found you before the 5th of December, it is because you were chosen long before this moment. Something has been set in motion for you, something that has been waiting for you. Acceptance, your belief, and your willingness to assume it as already yours. What you call a lottery miracle is not coming from outside. It is awakening from within you. You are not here by chance. You are here because God wanted you to hear this now. The first keynote opens the doorway to understanding why this moment matters, because nothing in your life arrives without purpose. When a message appears at the exact time your inner world reaches a certain level of readiness, it is not a coincidence. It is a response. The desire for sudden wealth, the pull toward financial freedom, the quiet hope for a miracle has been growing inside you long before you were aware of it. Desires unfold like seeds placed in the soil of your consciousness. Only when they are mature enough do they rise into your awareness. This is why you are hearing these words now. It is evidence that something within you has ripened, something you may not have been able to see with your physical eyes, but something that your inner self has been preparing for. Every desire that feels persistent and refuses to fade away is one that has completed its inner cycle, waiting for you to recognize it as already fulfilled in the unseen realm. When you feel a deep attraction toward the idea of a lottery breakthrough or sudden wealth, understand that this desire is not random, and it is not a fantasy. It is a spiritual signal that your internal state has aligned with the possibility of receiving it. The outer world always lags behind the inner shift. So by the time you feel the desire intensely, the unseen work has already begun. You are not drawn to wealth because you lack it. You are drawn to it because a greater version of yourself has already claimed it, and now your present self is catching up to what has been prepared. This is why the timing of this message matters. You are meeting the next phase of your own consciousness. You are encountering the echo of an internal shift that is finally reaching your awareness. Many people think manifestation begins with the desire itself, but the truth is that the desire appears only after the spiritual seed has already been planted. This entire process is divine in nature. Your consciousness, which is the creative power, begins forming the outcome long before your rational mind realizes something is happening. When this message reached you, it was because you were ready to see what has been forming within you for months, maybe even years. This is the silent preparation that happens in every major shift in life. You did not choose the timing. The timing chose you. And this timing is telling you that your consciousness is ready to make the unseen seen. The second keynote reveals a profound truth about divine timing. Human beings rely on calendars, clocks, and deadlines, but the higher power within you does not operate on these linear structures. What appears to be an ordinary date like the 5th of December becomes a symbolic marker for you, not because the date itself holds power, but because your awareness is being awakened before that moment arrives. When messages reach you at particular times, it is because there is a sequence unfolding, and each sequence has its own inner logic. Divine timing is never rushed and never late. It aligns perfectly with the readiness of your consciousness. This is why this message reached you before the 5th of December. It is not meant to warn you. It is meant to prepare you. It is a sign that a shift has already happened in the unseen. And now the physical realm is beginning to adjust itself. When you hear something at the right moment, it becomes a bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. It marks the transition from expectancy to realization. Divine timing uses moments, feelings, and inner nudges to pull you into alignment with the reality that is forming for you. Many people misunderstand timing because they believe miracles happen as sudden interruptions. In truth, miracles happen as natural conclusions of the inner work that has been completed in silence. They are not random blessings, but the fruits of consciousness aligning with conviction. When your internal world shifts into certainty, the external world begins to move. Numbers arrange, opportunities appear, pathways open, and circumstances reorganize themselves. What looks miraculous from the outside is simply the physical world catching up to what was already accepted internally. This is the reason certain messages reach you at exact moments. When the timing matches your readiness, the message acts like a key that unlocks what has already been prepared. This is not about predicting a date or waiting for a sign. It is about recognizing that when something arrives, it arrives because your consciousness has already stepped into a new state. You do not manifest by hoping that the date will bring you luck. You manifest by understanding that your inner world determines every outcome, regardless of time. The external date becomes meaningful only because your inner state has risen to a level where you are finally ready to receive. The 5th of December is not a magical deadline. It is a marker that symbolizes your readiness to embrace the reality you have imagined. When something reaches you before a date, it means you are being aligned ahead of time. It means the bridge of events is already being built. You are being positioned mentally and spiritually so you can step into the new version of yourself without doubt or resistance. Divine timing is preparing you, not the calendar. The moment you understand this truth, you step out of the world of waiting and into the world of assuming. Waiting gives your power away. Assuming reclaims it. When you begin to feel drawn to a message like this, it is because you are being reminded of who you truly are. You were never meant to chase signs. You were meant to create them through your assumptions. The very fact that these words found you now is evidence that your consciousness is ready to shift from desire into fulfillment. The universe is not giving you a countdown. It is giving you confirmation. Something is unfolding for you. And the timing of this message is the clue. The date is not giving you power. You are giving the date meaning because your internal state is already changing. Divine timing brings messages to you when you are prepared to accept a new identity. And that new identity is the version of you who no longer reaches for miracles, but embodies them. And the moment you recognize this, you are already aligning with the reality where the breakthrough exists. Both keynotes reveal one core truth. You are not waiting for something to happen. Something is waiting for you to accept it. The readiness within you is the signal. The timing of this message is the confirmation. Every inner shift you feel, every pull you sense, every alignment you notice is guiding you toward a reality that already belongs to you. The third keynote reveals one of the deepest truths about creation, a truth that many overlook because the world teaches them to believe only what they can see with their physical eyes. Yet everything that exists in your life began in the unseen realm of imagination long before it appeared in the material world. When you imagine yourself holding the winning ticket or seeing the lottery numbers align, you are not playing with fantasy. You are entering the only place where reality is actually formed. Every image, feeling, and inner conversation is a creative act shaping and molding the events that will eventually unfold in your experience. When you imagine your lottery win vividly and feel its certainty, something profound happens in consciousness. You receive the miracle internally, and this internal acceptance becomes the seed from which the physical manifestation grows. This is why the moment you imagine the end result and feel it to be real, the miracle has already been given to you. What you call imagination is not pretending, it is spiritual perception. It is the creative power of the divine within you. You are not trying to force something to happen when you imagine your success. You are simply claiming what already exists in the invisible realm of your consciousness. Imagination is the place where all versions of you exist, and the one you choose to identify with becomes the one you eventually meet in physical reality. When you imagine yourself as the one who has won, you are stepping into that version of yourself. You are not begging for a miracle. You are embodying it. You are assuming the identity of the one who has already experienced the shift. Many people misunderstand imagination because they were taught that it is something children use to entertain themselves. But imagination is the creative stage where every possibility is birthed. Everything you have ever achieved began as an inner picture. Everything you will ever receive must first be accepted as a feeling within you. When you imagine your lottery win with conviction, you set the entire universe in motion. Forces begin to move, events begin to shift, numbers begin to align, and opportunities begin to appear. The inner world issues the command, and the physical world obeys. The idea that you have already received the miracle in imagination is not metaphorical. It is literal. You receive it the moment you feel it as true. The physical world simply catches up to what you have already accepted in consciousness. This keynote also teaches a powerful principle. You do not manifest by hoping. Hope is passive and uncertain. Imagination is decisive and creative. Hope says, I wish. Imagination says, I claim. Hope waits for evidence. Imagination creates evidence. When you enter the inner world and visualize your desired outcome, you are not asking for permission. You are stating a fact. You are declaring the end result as already complete. And because consciousness is the only true creative power, the moment you accept the end as a reality, creation has already begun. This is the secret behind every miracle story. The miracle is not the event. The miracle is the shift within you that makes the event unavoidable. The fourth keynote expands the process by revealing why many people delay their own blessings without realizing it. The miracle manifests when you stop questioning it, when you no longer ask if it will happen or when it will happen. Doubt freezes the creative process because it sends conflicting signals into consciousness. One moment you assume the reality of being the winner. The next moment you question whether it is possible. This back and forth causes your inner world to vibrate in uncertainty, and uncertainty does not create outcomes. Certainty does. Manifestation has nothing to do with how strongly you wish for something and everything to do with how consistently you assume it is already yours. Doubt is not an enemy. It is simply a sign that you have not fully stepped into the new identity. When you assume the feeling of having already received your lottery blessing, there is no need to question it. You move through life with quiet confidence. You do not look for signs or wait for confirmations, because the feeling within you becomes its own proof. The inner world becomes more real than the outer world. This shift is not arrogance. It is spiritual alignment. When you embody the identity of the winner, you no longer wonder when the miracle will happen because you feel it already has. The physical world is merely in the process of reflecting your internal state. The moment you stop questioning and begin assuming, your energy becomes steady, your thoughts stabilize, your emotions align. This creates a powerful internal frequency that draws the event into your experience. The universe responds to consistency. It responds to clarity. It responds to the unshakable conviction that you are who you have chosen to be. The miracle comes not because you beg for it, but because you embody it. The moment you drop uncertainty, the bridge of events begins to unfold naturally. You do not need to force anything. You simply walk through each day knowing that the end result is already established. This keynote teaches you something essential about the law of assumption. You do not manifest by wanting a specific event. Wanting creates more wanting. You manifest by assuming an identity. When you assume the identity of the one who has already won, everything around you begins to adjust itself. Your inner speech changes. Your expectations shift. Your interpretation of events becomes more positive. You stop questioning and start knowing. This is the moment the miracle begins to materialize. The external world becomes a mirror reflecting the internal state of completion. When people question their manifestations, they weaken their creative power. Questioning implies separation. It implies distance. It implies that the desired outcome is somewhere far away, but assumption collapses distance. It brings the end to you. It allows you to live from the reality instead of toward it. This is why the miracle appears when you stop questioning. The absence of doubt is not blind faith. It is alignment with the truth that imagination creates reality. The moment you accept this, the miracle becomes inevitable. The fourth keynote also reminds you that the process of manifesting wealth, including something like a lottery win, is not about forcing your will. It's about surrendering to the feeling of already being taken care of. When you stop questioning, you shift from anxiety to assurance. You begin to feel supported. You walk differently. You think differently. This change might be subtle, but the universe responds powerfully to it. You become a magnet for the reality you have accepted. And because the universe must reflect your dominant inner assumption, the miracle begins moving toward you the moment you stabilize your internal belief. When you combine these two keynotes, you learn that the miracle is first received in imagination and then expressed through unwavering assumption. Imagination gives it form. Assumption gives it life, and together they create a reality where your desired outcome becomes not just possible but unavoidable. The fifth keynote reveals a truth that most people never recognize because they are too focused on the material world. When they think about a lottery miracle or sudden wealth, they think the money itself is the miracle. They believe the numbers aligning or the ticket being drawn is the extraordinary moment. But the real miracle is not the money. The real miracle is the shift in identity that makes the money possible. Money is simply the outer reflection of an inner change. Your identity determines everything you experience, and when you step into the identity of someone who is already abundant, your world reorganizes itself around that version of you. What you receive is always an echo of who you have become internally. This is why some people win money only to lose it quickly. Their identity did not match the blessing they received. Their inner world remained unchanged, so the outer blessing could not stay. When you begin to see yourself as someone who is worthy of wealth, someone who expects prosperity, someone who believes abundance flows to them effortlessly, you create the internal foundation that allows external wealth to remain stable. Identity shifts are subtle, but they are powerful. They happen when you change how you speak to yourself, how you interpret events, and how you imagine your future. When you imagine being wealthy and feel a sense of peace rather than anxiety, you are stepping into a new identity. When you believe money comes to you with ease rather than struggle, you are rewriting the script of your life. This shift is not loud or dramatic. It happens quietly, often without you noticing it at first. But once it settles into your consciousness, your entire reality begins to transform. The miracle is the moment you stop seeing yourself as someone who is trying to manifest money and begin seeing yourself as someone who already embodies wealth. That shift changes the way you think, feel, and act. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you hold your energy transforms. You no longer beg the universe for a breakthrough. You assume that the breakthrough is already in motion. You no longer feel like wealth is something outside of you. You feel it as something that belongs to you, something natural to you, something that fits the person you have become. This new identity becomes a magnet for abundance. Money flows towards certainty, not desperation. It flows toward those who feel aligned with it, not those who chase it. When your identity becomes that of a winner, the outer world reflects that identity with precision. This keynote teaches that wealth is a state of being before it becomes a number in your bank account. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you believe you are. And once you become the person for whom abundance feels normal, the miracle has already happened. The money simply becomes the physical confirmation of the shift that took place inside you. When people try to skip the internal shift and jump straight to the external outcome, they usually find themselves frustrated or confused. They do not realize that the outer experience cannot sustain itself without the inner identity that matches it. But when the shift occurs within you, the physical world becomes obligated to reflect it. This is why the miracle is not outside. It is inside you, unfolding quietly, preparing the foundation for the blessings you are meant to receive. The sixth keynote takes this understanding even further by revealing that every desire you feel is evidence of something already prepared for you in consciousness. Desires are not random impulses. They are not accidents. They are not mistakes. They are messages. You cannot desire something that does not already exist for you in the unseen realm. When you feel the desire for more wealth, greater freedom, or a lottery breakthrough, that desire is not telling you what you lack. It is telling you what is available to you. It is showing you what exists in another version of your life, already fully formed, in the invisible, waiting for you to claim it through imagination and assumption. This is why some desires feel so persistent. They return again and again, no matter how much you try to ignore them. They follow you through your days and whisper to you in quiet moments. They do this because they are reflections of what is already yours in the higher dimension of consciousness. A desire is the beginning of a bridge to a new state of being. It comes to you so you can walk across that bridge, leaving behind the old version of yourself and stepping into the fulfilled version. When you feel a desire deeply, especially the desire for financial freedom or a sudden blessing, that feeling is a sign that the seed of the miracle has already been planted in your imagination, even if you're not aware of it. Desire is a form of guidance. It points you toward your next chapter. It shows you the direction your consciousness is trying to move. When you resist your desires or label them unrealistic, you block the very path meant to lead you into expansion. When you embrace them, when you allow yourself to feel them fully, you activate the creative process. The moment you accept your desire without fear, without guilt, without hesitation, you begin to align with its fulfillment. The desire is not asking you to struggle for it. It is asking you to recognize it as something that belongs to you. When you desire wealth, it is because your consciousness knows that a wealthier version of you already exists. When you desire a lottery breakthrough, it is because that experience is already created for you in the unseen. Your job is not to chase the desire. Your job is to accept it, to assume the feeling of its fulfillment, to embody the version of yourself who already has it. Once you do this, you begin to merge with the reality that the desire is pointing toward. The universe does not show you desires to tease you. It shows them to prepare you. They are reminders of what is possible, what is ready, and what is waiting for your belief to bring it into expression. This keynote teaches that the desire is the confirmation. It is the proof. It is the sign that what you seek also seeks you. Every dream you hold with sincerity and emotion is not something you invented. It is something you are remembering. A version of you has already lived it in consciousness. And now your present self is being drawn toward it. When you understand this truth, you stop doubting your desires. You stop questioning whether you are worthy of them. You stop thinking they are beyond your reach. You begin to see them as guides, leading you to the next level of your life. Together, these two keynotes teach a powerful lesson. You are not waiting for money to come to you. You are waiting for your identity to rise to the level where money becomes natural. And you are not chasing desires. You are recognizing them as signs that something already exists for you in consciousness. The internal shift and the desire are the real miracles, preparing you for the physical expression that is already on its way. The seventh keynote opens a doorway into the deepest understanding of creation by showing you that you are the operant power. Nothing in your life moves without your consciousness moving first. Nothing in your world changes without your inner world shifting. Many people live as if life is happening to them, as if circumstances are in control, as if luck or chance decides their fate. But the truth is that everything responds to the assumptions you hold within yourself. When you begin to recognize your own creative power, you stop living as a reactor and start living as a creator. You begin to see that your thoughts, your emotions, your inner conversation, and your expectations are shaping the path you walk every single day. This understanding is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to empower you. It is meant to show you that your life is not a matter of unpredictable events, but a reflection of the state you consistently occupy. Being the operant power means that you do not wait for the world to change before you change your belief. You do not wait for signs before you feel certainty. You do not wait for the numbers to appear before you feel the joy of receiving your lottery blessing. You awaken to the truth that the only place where change can begin is within your own consciousness. When you understand this, you stop relying on external triggers and start relying on your internal imagination. You begin to feel that your desires are not given to you to create anxiety, but to invite you into a new state of being. When you truly know you are the operant power, you stop questioning your worthiness and start claiming your identity. You understand that the moment you commit inwardly to a new version of yourself, the outer world must eventually mirror it because it has no choice. It has always been responding to you, even when you were unaware. This keynote teaches that you are not powerless in the face of life's experiences. You are the one who sets the tone. You are the one who commands the atmosphere of your reality. If you assume prosperity internally, life will create the conditions to bring you prosperity. If you assume victory internally, life will open doors to show you victory. If you assume lack, life will find ways to reflect that assumption back to you. This is not punishment. It is law. The external world is like a faithful servant. It carries out the instructions given by your inner state. This is why being the operant power means taking responsibility for your inner world. Not responsibility in the sense of pressure, but responsibility in the sense of awareness. You begin to observe your inner dialogue. You begin to pay attention to the feelings you walk with. You begin to notice the assumptions you habitually return to. And once you become aware, you realize you can change them at any moment. The eighth keynote takes this truth deeper by showing that your assumption is the law. Whatever you assume to be true, consistently and with feeling, becomes the foundation of your reality. Assumption is not wishful thinking. It is not hoping something might happen. It is not trying to force an event through effort. Assumption is the quiet inner acceptance of a reality before it appears physically. It is the decision to live from the end result rather than toward it. When you assume yourself to be financially secure, the world begins to reflect that state. When you assume the feeling of having already won, your inner world becomes aligned with the version of you who has the winning ticket. This alignment is what shapes the events, people, and circumstances that eventually lead to the physical expression of what you have claimed within. Assumption works because consciousness creates. Your sustained inner state becomes the blueprint that the universe uses to form your experiences. If you assume that wealth is difficult to attain, your life must reflect obstacles. If you assume that money flows to you easily, your life must reflect opportunities. The universe does not decide what you get. Your assumption does. This is why it is essential to hold the feeling of the wish fulfilled with consistency and confidence. You are not waiting for proof. You are declaring your truth. When you act and think and feel from the place of the fulfilled desire, you collapse the distance between you and the manifestation. Assumption brings the end into the present moment because in consciousness, time does not exist the way it does in the physical world. Everything you can imagine already exists as a possibility. Assumption chooses which possibility you step into. This keynote also teaches that assumption is not something you do once. It is a state you live in. It is a position you take in your inner world. When doubts arise, you return to the feeling of certainty. When fear shows up, you return to the feeling of completion. When circumstances contradict your desire, you return to the feeling of having already received it. This steadiness creates momentum. It creates an energetic current that pulls the physical world into alignment with your inner conviction. Assumption does not require effort. It requires persistence. It requires choosing the same inner truth repeatedly until it becomes your natural state of being. Once it becomes natural, the outer world begins to shift effortlessly because you are no longer divided within yourself. These two keynotes work together to reveal the essence of manifestation. You are the operant power, meaning everything responds to your consciousness. An assumption is the law, meaning whatever you normalize within yourself will become your lived experience. When you bring these truths together, you realize you no longer need to chase outcomes or struggle to force results. You simply choose your state, assume its reality, and let the outer world reflect what you have already accepted as true. The ninth keynote reveals the profound truth that your inner conversations are the blueprint of your destiny. Most people believe the words they speak out loud hold the greatest influence, but it is the quiet dialogue within your mind that shapes your world with the most power. Every internal sentence, every imagined comment, every private response you rehearse in your mind is an instruction you send into your subconscious. And the subconscious, being faithful and unquestioning, accepts these inner words as commands. It does not judge or analyze them. It simply brings them to life by shaping your emotions, decisions, actions, and eventually the events around you. Your inner conversations are not harmless mental chatter. They are the construction team building your future. When you imagine yourself worrying about lack, your subconscious begins preparing circumstances that match that worry. When you picture yourself struggling, your subconscious sets you on paths filled with struggle. But when you fill your inner space with thoughts of abundance, certainty, and victory, your subconscious aligns you with experiences that mirror those truths. This is why controlling your inner dialogue is not a small practice. It is the foundation of the reality you create. Most people allow their inner conversations to run on old patterns, repeat stories of limitation without realizing the impact this has on their outcome. They tell themselves phrases like, nothing ever works for me, or I never get lucky, or money is hard to attract. And then they wonder why life keeps returning the same results. But when you shift your inner conversations deliberately, you change the emotional frequency you live in. And when your emotional frequency changes, your perception changes. You begin to see opportunities where previously you only saw obstacles. You respond differently to challenges. You attract experiences that match your internal certainty. This keynote teaches that you do not need to speak your desires loudly to manifest them. You need only speak them inwardly until they become your natural inner conversation. When you walk through your day, saying to yourself quietly, I am blessed financially, or money flows to me without resistance, or my miracle is already in motion, you're planting seeds in the soil of your subconscious. These seeds grow into beliefs, and beliefs become the architecture of your reality. The miracle begins in the private room of your mind, long before the world ever sees it. You cannot hide from your inner conversations because they shape every step you take. When you change them, you change everything. The 10th keynote expands this truth by showing that the feeling of gratitude is not something you express after manifestation arrives. Gratitude is the emotional bridge that connects you to the reality you are manifesting. It is often misunderstood as a reaction, but in spiritual law, gratitude is a cause. It is the emotional acceptance that something is already yours. When you feel grateful before the manifestation appears, you collapse the separation between desire and fulfillment. You step into the identity of the one who already has the blessing, and the universe must respond accordingly. Gratitude is a powerful creative force because it shifts your emotional state instantly. You cannot feel grateful and lackful at the same time. You cannot feel grateful and doubtful at the same time. Gratitude dissolves fear, worry, and resistance because it carries the energy of completion. When you express gratitude for your lottery blessing before seeing it, you are telling your subconscious that the miracle has already happened. You are aligning yourself with the outcome, not from desperation, but from certainty. This emotional alignment is what draws the manifestation closer, because your state becomes the state of fulfillment instead of longing. Gratitude also sharpens your awareness. It trains your mind to see movement even in moments when nothing seems to be changing externally. Instead of saying nothing is happening, you begin to feel everything is unfolding perfectly. This shift changes the path you walk, the decisions you make, and the intuition you follow. Gratitude opens doors because it opens your perception. When your heart feels full, you become receptive to ideas, impulses, and opportunities you would have missed in a state of worry. This keynote teaches that gratitude is not a tool you use occasionally. It is a state you live in, a state that anchors you in abundance even before the outer evidence arrives. When you wake up feeling grateful for the miracle you have already claimed, you set the tone for your day. You influence your energy. You send a message into the universe that you are aligned with the outcome. Gratitude becomes the emotional confirmation that the manifestation is already real within you, because consciousness creates reality. This internal confirmation shapes the path before you. When you combine the 9th and 10th keynotes, you gain a profound understanding of how your inner world constructs your outer experiences. Your inner conversations form the mental structure, and your gratitude fills that structure with emotional certainty. Together, they create an inner environment where the miracle becomes inevitable. Inner conversations give direction. Gratitude gives completion. And when direction and completion meet within your consciousness, the external world must rise to match the inner blueprint. There comes a moment on every spiritual path when life itself whispers something that feels almost otherworldly. A moment when the inner voice becomes louder than the noise of the world. This is what happens when a person steps into the 11th keynote, where they finally understand that wealth is not earned through effort alone, but through alignment with their inner creative power. In this stage, the seeker begins to sense that money is not some distant external material object, but an extension of consciousness. It is shaped and formed by the inner assumptions held about it. Here the mind no longer argues with the desire for financial expansion, but instead embraces it as something natural, something rightful, something already given. The individual begins to realize that wanting more is not greed, it is a divine impulse pulling them toward the next version of themselves. As this understanding deepens, they start to imagine wealth with a quiet confidence, no longer begging or hoping, but assuming. They sit alone in silence and rehearse scenes of a life where abundance is ordinary, where bills are paid without effort, where opportunities flow easily. The remarkable shift happens not in the bank account first, but in the inner atmosphere, kind of stillness that replaces doubt. It is here that the person notices subtle changes around them. Conversations about prosperity appear out of nowhere, unexpected opportunities align, and even random encounters seem designed to reflect the new inner state. The miracle is not the money itself, but the inner shift that creates it. This keynote shows the listener that God never withholds abundance. God simply mirrors the emotional and imaginative state they consistently occupy. Once the principle is lived rather than intellectually understood, wealth becomes responsive, almost obedient, as though it has been waiting for the doorway of belief to open. As this phase continues, the listener moves into the 12th keynote, a state where they begin to trust the invisible more than the visible. This is where the spiritual laws become personal, intimate, and undeniably real. The individual begins to see that their imagination is not their fantasy, but the workshop where their future is constructed. They understand that the scenes they rehearse before sleep are not idle dreams. They are blueprints being sent into the deeper mind, where every detail begins to organize itself. This is the stage where a person learns to prioritize inner harmony over outer chaos. Instead of responding to circumstances with fear, they respond with awareness, remembering that every condition in their life is an echo of a feeling once sustained. They begin to observe their emotional reactions with more clarity. Whenever fear about money tries to rise, they gently guide themselves back into the felt sense of having more than enough. They start to cultivate a relationship with wealth that feels personal, almost sacred, where money is treated as a loyal companion rather than a source of anxiety. At this point, they no longer panic when things appear delayed. They no longer lose faith when the physical world seems quiet. Instead, they hold the assumption that what they have imagined is already set in motion, already unfolding in the unseen. They become steady, grounded, confident, because they now understand that delays are illusions and doubts are distractions. The invisible feels more real than the visible because they have experienced the power of inner transformation. They have seen how imagination rearranges events, how assumptions alter opportunity, and how a single shift in inner speech can redirect the course of an entire day. This trust becomes their greatest strength. It becomes the anchor that keeps them aligned with their desire, even when appearances suggest otherwise. The 12th keynote teaches the listener that the miracle they seek is not far away. It is not waiting weeks or months ahead. It is already present in the invisible form, waiting patiently to be felt as real. And as the listener continues to dwell in the feeling of already having what they desire, life begins to respond with exquisite precision. Unexpected money appears. Ideas bloom effortlessly. A calm sense of certainty fills the heart. Nothing feels forced. Nothing feels desperate, because they have entered the state where their desire is already fulfilled. This keynote becomes a profound reminder that creation is finished and manifestation is simply the unveiling of what has always existed in the divine imagination. There comes a powerful turning point in the journey of assumption where the 13th keynote begins to unfold within the listener like a rising dawn. This is the stage where a person finally grasps the true meaning of living in the end, not as a momentary technique or a 5-minute visualization, but as a continuous inner atmosphere. It is here that the listener understands that living in the end is not something performed, it is something inhabited. It becomes the inner home of the mind. In this phase, one begins to sense the deep distinction between wishing and assuming. A wish is fragile and scattered, but an assumption is stable, anchored, unwavering. A wish asks if something is possible, but assumption declares it already done. And once this realization awakens, the listener steps into a new dimension of spiritual self-authority. This stage is marked by a profound shift in inner dialogue. The person no longer repeats old patterns of inner speech that contradict their desire. They begin to notice that every casual comment made silently, their own mind carries creative power. They see that even a simple internal reaction can influence events. This awareness becomes almost sacred, because they finally understand that their inner world is the true cause of every outer effect. The 13th keynote teaches the listener to become vigilant but not fearful, observant but not rigid, intentional but not forceful. They start to speak within themselves from the point of fulfillment. They congratulate themselves mentally without waiting for physical evidence. They craft an inward tone of certainty, warmth, gratitude, and victory, and they stay with it throughout the day. In this stage, imagination is no longer something practiced occasionally. It becomes unbroken attitude. The listener begins to walk, breathe, and move as the person who already has their desire. This shift is subtle, yet incredibly powerful. When they open their wallet, they feel the abundance that belongs to them. When they think of money, they feel calm and supplied. When they envision their future, they feel a sense of completion rather than longing. This is the essence of living in the end, the quiet confidence that the inner movie has already been filmed, and the outer world is merely catching up. The person no longer checks for signs with desperation, but observes them with delight. They stop calculating timelines and instead enjoy the state of knowing. This keynote teaches that manifestation is not about waiting, it is about accepting. As the 13th keynote deepens, something extraordinary happens. The outer world begins to shift in ways that seem almost magical. Situations that once felt stuck begin to move. Opportunities that were never considered begin to appear. People behave differently without knowing why. Circumstances rearrange themselves with a precision that feels guided. And to the listener, it becomes clear that their inner state has organized it all. This is where the miraculous becomes normal, where the supernatural feels natural. The listener realizes that the universe itself bends to match the state they consistently occupy. And with this understanding comes a feeling of profound empowerment, because they are no longer at the mercy of external conditions. They are the architect of them. This keynote becomes a gateway to an even higher level of spiritual mastery, which unfolds in the 14th keynote. In this stage, the listener discovers the immense transformative power of persistence. Not persistence in effort or physical struggle, but persistence in imagination. It is here that the person understands that the only true battle in life is the battle of attention. They begin to see that their attention has always been the treasure, the true substance of creation. Wherever attention goes, energy flows and reality follows. Persistence becomes the act of returning again and again to the inner state of fulfillment, no matter how loud the outer world tries to be. The 15th keynote delves into a subtle yet transformative principle, the understanding that every external circumstance is a mirror reflecting the state of your inner world. Many people go through life chasing events, opportunities, or conditions, believing that changing their outer world will bring relief, happiness, or abundance. Yet the truth is the opposite. The outer world cannot lead you to fulfillment until your inner world is aligned. This realization is revolutionary because it shifts the focus from trying to manipulate external conditions to mastering the inner self. When you grasp this principle fully, you begin to see that money, opportunity, relationships, and experiences do not arrive randomly. They respond directly to the dominant assumptions, feelings, and beliefs that you carry within. It becomes clear that the real work is internal, invisible, and often quiet, yet it produces results far beyond anything external effort alone could achieve. At this stage, the listener begins to notice how their habitual thoughts and assumptions shape their experience. Every feeling of lack, every doubt about receiving, every inner complaint subtly programs the subconscious to generate experiences that match those vibrations. Conversely, when they nurture feelings of certainty, abundance, and already having what they desire, the universe begins to respond in kind. The 15th keynote emphasizes that the power to change circumstances lies not in persuading the outside world, but in transforming the inner landscape. Each shift in assumption, each rehearsal of the desired state, each quiet affirmation of having already received is like planting a seed that will grow into the visible outcome. It is this understanding that turns ordinary people into conscious creators of their lives, capable of orchestrating experiences that previously seemed impossible. The 15th keynote also teaches the importance of consistency in inner work. Occasional thoughts of abundance or fleeting visualizations are not enough. To truly change the reflection, you must persistently inhabit the state of the fulfilled desire. This does not mean forcing or straining the mind. It means repeatedly returning to the inner feeling of having what you want, allowing it to become natural, habitual, and dominant. Each time you do this, you reinforce the blueprint in your subconscious, solidifying the internal reality that will inevitably manifest externally. The listener begins to understand that the law of consciousness does not operate on effort, but on the persistence of assumption. The inner conviction, maintained without interruption, becomes a force that shapes the outer world with precision. As this principle takes root, the listener also learns to observe signs and synchronicities without depending on them. Signs are merely confirmations, not the source of manifestation. The source is always the internal state. This awareness brings a sense of calm because it eliminates the anxious dependence on external events. The listener can continue to live, act, and make decisions with confidence, knowing that the inner state they sustain is the true determinant of outcomes. Opportunities align, people respond, and circumstances adjust not because of luck, chance, or external effort, but because the inner state has established a blueprint that the universe faithfully reflects. Moving to the 16th keynote, the focus deepens on the transformative power of assuming the feeling of fulfillment. This principle takes the listener beyond the theoretical understanding of imagination and into the practical, emotional embodiment of their desire. To assume the feeling of fulfillment is to emotionally and mentally live in the state of having already received, as if there is no delay, no question, and no limitation. It is a conscious decision to inhabit the world from the perspective of the end result rather than from the position of desire or lack. The 16 keynote teaches that this practice is not superficial visualization. It is the cultivation of a living, breathing inner reality. Every thought, every emotion, every subtle reaction is aligned with the reality of fulfillment, creating a resonance that the universe cannot ignore. This stage emphasizes the connection between identity and assumption. When you consistently assume the feeling of fulfillment, you begin to identify with the version of yourself who already possesses your desire, your self-image, your habits, your responses, and even your perceptions adjust to match this new identity. The 16 keynote shows that manifestation is not merely an event, but a process of inner transformation. You are not waiting to become wealthy. You are becoming the person who is already wealthy. This alignment between identity and desired outcome ensures that when external circumstances appear, they are sustainable and harmonious with who you have become. This is why people who win large sums of money or experience sudden breakthroughs often find it fleeting if their inner identity has not shifted. The manifestation must match the inner state to endure. The 16th keynote also highlights the subtle but powerful effect of internal consistency. It is not enough to assume the feeling of fulfillment sporadically or when convenient. The listener must cultivate the inner state as a dominant, persistent reality. Each time they allow themselves to feel lack, fear, or doubt, they are temporarily stepping out of alignment. Each time they return to the feeling of fulfillment, they strengthen the internal blueprint and reinforce the vibrational pattern that attracts the desired outcome. This practice becomes a disciplined art, a continual return to the state of completion, which gradually transforms the subconscious into a faithful generator of experiences. Additionally, this keynote teaches that assuming the feeling of fulfillment is inherently joyful and liberating. It replaces anxiety with confidence, desperation with ease, and longing with contentment. The listener begins to notice that the world feels lighter, opportunities more abundant, and challenges less intimidating. The act of assuming the end cultivates a magnetic presence that draws resources, people, and circumstances toward the individual effortlessly. It creates a natural flow in life where obstacles seem minor and solutions appear almost automatically. The listener starts to embody a state where the universe responds with immediacy and precision, reflecting the inner certainty they maintain. Together, the 15th and 16th keynotes reinforce the understanding that manifestation is always a reflection of consciousness. The 15th keynote emphasizes the importance of inner alignment over external effort, while the 16th keynote provides the practical method, assume the feeling of fulfillment, and inhabit it fully. This combination shows the listener that reality is not determined by circumstance, timing, or chance, but by the dominant inner state they maintain. Life, therefore, becomes a mirror of the internal world, faithfully reflecting the beliefs, emotions, and assumptions that have been cultivated with persistence and intention. These keynotes also encourage the listener to embrace patience as an active, empowered state rather than passive waiting. By consistently assuming fulfillment and maintaining inner alignment, they create the conditions for effortless manifestation. The listener begins to observe that as the inner state is held steady, outer events begin to synchronize. Opportunities arrive naturally, and circumstances bend to reflect the certainty of the assumed state. This is the essence of conscious creation, not forcing outcomes, not scrambling for external solutions, but living in the emotional reality of what is already theirs. As the listener integrates these principles, a profound shift occurs in perception. They no longer see the world as something to negotiate with or struggle against. Instead, life is seen as a faithful reflection, a mirror responding to their inner state. Challenges are no longer threatening. They are invitations to reaffirm alignment. Doubts are no longer terrifying. They are signals to return to the feeling of fulfillment. This shift cultivates a deep sense of peace, confidence, and clarity as the listener realizes that the power to create the life they desire has always rested within their consciousness. Ultimately, these two keynotes show that the act of assuming the end and maintaining inner alignment is both the foundation and the engine of manifestation. They reveal that abundance, opportunity, and miracles are not external prizes to be chased but inevitable. Outcomes of a mind and heart fully aligned with the reality of already having received. By consistently practicing these principles, the listener transforms their identity, strengthens their subconscious programming, and sets in motion a sequence of events that guarantees the physical manifestation of their desires. This understanding brings not only results, but a profound sense of empowerment, joy, and harmony as the listener lives as the conscious creator of their reality. The 17th keynote emphasizes a truth that is both simple and profoundly transformative. Your imagination is the workshop of reality, and it responds not to fleeting wishes, but to sustained, vivid, and emotionally charged images. Many people underestimate the power of their own imagination, treating it as a pastime or a daydream, rather than the very mechanism by which their desires are brought into manifestation. Yet, in this stage, the listener begins to understand that imagination is the most reliable tool available, because it operates directly within the subconscious mind where all creation originates. When you vividly imagine a scene of already having what you desire, and you feel the reality of that scene with all of your senses, you are issuing command to the inner mind. This command, unwavering and repeated, sets in motion a chain of events that aligns your external circumstances with the reality you have assumed. In the 17th keynote, the listener learns that imagination is not an occasional exercise, but a continuous state of being. It is not merely visualizing a single scene, it is inhabiting the feeling and the identity of the fulfilled desire consistently. The mind does not differentiate between what is physically real and what is vividly imagined with conviction. To the subconscious, the imagined scene is a command as real as any external event. This realization shifts the listener from a state of passivity, hoping for external validation or waiting for signs, to a state of active creation. They begin to rehearse the reality they wish to live in, silently and intentionally. And in doing so, they build a vibrational blueprint that the universe must follow. As this understanding deepens, the listener also notices the profound importance of emotional involvement in imagination. It is not enough to see the numbers, the money, or the desired circumstance. One must feel it fully. Emotion is the amplifier of imagination. When a scene is imbued with a feeling of certainty, joy, relief, or satisfaction, it carries a frequency that the subconscious cannot ignore. The 17th keynote teaches that imagining with emotional richness transforms mere thought into creation. It elevates mental rehearsal from an intellectual exercise into a living, breathing act of manifestation. The listener learns to cultivate scenes that are detailed, immersive, and emotionally convincing, because this combination produces the strongest alignment with the desired reality. The 17th keynote also emphasizes patience as a natural companion of imagination. While the subconscious accepts the imagined scene immediately, the physical world responds in its own timing. The listener learns to hold the imagined state with steady persistence, knowing that the delay in physical manifestation does not indicate failure or doubt. This patience is not passive, it is empowered waiting, a confident understanding that the internal state has already caused the creation to begin. The listener begins to realize that the external world is only the echo of what has already been firmly established in the unseen, and their role is to maintain the inner conviction until the reflection becomes visible. Moving into the 18th keynote, the focus shifts to the refinement of inner speech. The understanding that your words, both internal and external, carry immense creative power. It is in this stage that the listener comes to understand that every thought spoken silently, every mental commentary, every internal affirmation, and every emotional reaction communicates instructions to the subconscious. The subconscious, which is the creative engine behind all manifestation, takes these words as literal truth and acts upon them. If one repeatedly said internally that life is difficult, that luck is rare, or that wealth is impossible, the subconscious arranges experiences to match those beliefs. Conversely, when one speaks internally in alignment with the desired outcome, assuming fulfillment and expressing confidence, the subconscious creates circumstances that mirror that reality. The 18th keynote emphasizes the integration of inner speech with imagination. It is not enough to imagine scenes in isolation. One must accompany them with consistent inner dialogue that reinforces the reality of the fulfilled desire. This inner speech must be positive, assumptive, and emotionally aligned with the outcome. It is the dialogue of the person who already has what they desire, not the dialogue of someone hoping, questioning, or pleading for it. The listener learns that each sentence repeated internally is like a brick in the construction of their reality. The stronger, more consistent, and more emotionally charged the inner speech, the more durable and precise the external manifestation becomes. This stage also teaches that mindfulness of thought is essential. Many people allow random, contradictory, or fearful thoughts to pass unnoticed, unaware of their creative consequences. The 18th keynote encourages vigilance, not in a critical or anxious sense, but in a conscious, attentive way. The listener learns to observe thoughts that contradict their assumed reality and to gently redirect them toward alignment with their desire. They begin to practice a disciplined form of mental stewardship, recognizing that the quality and consistency of inner speech determine the quality and consistency of life experiences. Together, the 17th and 18th keynotes form a complete system of creation. Imagination provides the vivid, emotionally charged blueprint. And inner speech reinforces, amplifies, and directs that blueprint into the subconscious. Imagination without supportive inner speech can be diluted, and inner speech without vivid imaginative scenes can lack emotional power. When combined, they create an unbreakable internal architecture for manifestation. The listener begins to understand that the external world is a faithful mirror of this internal architecture, and that mastery of imagination and inner speech allows them to consciously design the life they desire. In these keynotes, the listener also begins to feel a profound sense of empowerment and freedom. They realize that they are not at the mercy of chance, luck, or external circumstances. They are the operant force, the conscious creator, and the architect of every outcome. By persistently using imagination and inner speech in alignment with their desires, they learn to orchestrate life in a way that feels effortless yet incredibly precise. Obstacles no longer appear as insurmountable barriers, but as temporary feedback, opportunities to reaffirm the internal state and return to alignment. This understanding cultivates a deep sense of confidence, calm, and inner authority as the listener experiences firsthand the reliability of conscious creation. Ultimately, the 17th and 18th keynotes teach that the path to manifestation is not a matter of force, effort, or external persuasion. It is the mastery of consciousness itself. Imagining vividly, feeling deeply, and speaking internally with unwavering assumption. When these practices are applied consistently, life begins to mirror the inner state with extraordinary accuracy. The listener begins to experience synchronicities, opportunities, and blessings that confirm the power of their own inner world. They come to know that every desired outcome, every breakthrough, and every abundance begins and is sustained entirely within consciousness before it appears externally. Mastery of these keynotes allows them to live in a state of quiet certainty, knowing that the life they imagine, the life they feel, and the life they affirm inwardly is already being realized, and the universe must follow the blueprint they have carefully constructed. 19th keynote introduces a profound understanding of the invisible forces that govern the flow of life. The idea that everything you see around you is a reflection of your inner state, and that your persistent attention determines the trajectory of your experiences. Many people spend their lives reacting to outer events, believing that circumstances dictate their feelings, choices, and opportunities. Yet, in this stage, the listener begins to understand the opposite truth. External conditions are the effect, not the cause. The world is constantly mirroring back the dominant beliefs, emotions, and assumptions you hold within. This realization is transformative because it shifts the focus from trying to change others, manipulate circumstances, or chase outcomes, to mastering your inner life. You begin to see that the power to influence every aspect of your life lies within you, quietly and consistently, in the state of your consciousness. At this level, the listener notices the precision of reflection. Every situation, interaction, or opportunity that appears in life corresponds to a thought, a feeling, or an assumption that has been repeatedly held in the inner mind. It is not random, nor is it a matter of luck. It is the faithful operation of the law of consciousness. Understanding this allows the listener to stop reacting with frustration or impatience when events do not align with their desires. Instead, they learn to observe, adjust, and return to the inner state that matches the outcome they seek. The 19th keynote teaches that life is infinitely responsive, but it requires your sustained inner alignment. By consistently holding the assumption of fulfillment and imagining the desired reality with emotion and clarity, you create a magnetic field that draws the external world into perfect resonance with your inner state. This keynote also emphasizes the importance of vigilance over attention, thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that contradict your desired reality act, like leaks in the creative process, diluting the power of assumption. The listener learns to observe these intrusions without judgment, gently, redirecting their attention back to the state of fulfillment. This practice is not about suppression or denial. It is about conscious choice. Every moment spent dwelling in doubt, fear, or lack strengthens a pattern of limitation, while every moment spent returning to the assumed reality strengthens the blueprint for manifestation. By mastering attention in this way, the listener begins to experience a sense of control, not through effort, but through presence, awareness, and consistent alignment. The 19th keynote further teaches that patience is an active state, not passive waiting. The delay of external manifestation does not signify a problem or failure. It is merely the natural unfolding of events. Time, reflecting what has already been completed in consciousness. The listener learns to trust the process, knowing that their inner state has set creation in motion and that the outer world will inevitably catch up. This creates a sense of calm assurance because the need for external validation diminishes. You are no longer dependent on physical evidence to feel certainty. Your inner world becomes the source of confidence, power, and peace. The 20th keynote builds upon this foundation by emphasizing the role of faith as the bridge between imagination and manifestation. Faith is not mere hope or wishful thinking. It is the unwavering belief in the reality of the desired state, even when physical evidence has not yet appeared. Faith is the emotional certainty that what you have imagined, assumed, and felt internally is already accomplished and is simply waiting to be revealed. This principle is critical because it aligns the listener with the vibrational frequency of the fulfilled desire, creating harmony between consciousness and the physical world. The 20th keynote teaches that faith is the stabilizing force that ensures persistence in the inner state, even when outer circumstances seem to contradict it. In this stage, the listener learns that faith operates in tandem with imagination and inner speech. Imagination provides the detailed, sensory-rich blueprint of the desired outcome. Inner speech reinforces and amplifies this blueprint within the subconscious mind. Faith sustains the emotional and mental alignment necessary to allow these internal constructs to crystallize into external reality. Without faith, the inner work becomes fragmented, and doubts act as obstacles that slow or distort manifestation. When faith is applied consistently, it strengthens the inner identity of fulfillment, ensuring that the desired state is not only imagined, but embodied and maintained until it materializes externally. The 20th keynote also highlights that faith transforms the perception of obstacles, challenges, delays, or apparent contradictions in life are no longer seen as threats or failures. Instead, they become opportunities to reaffirm alignment, return to the inner state of assumption, and reinforce trust in the unseen. The listener begins to experience a sense of invulnerability, not because circumstances have changed, but because their inner state has become unshakable. This internal authority produces calm, clarity, and confidence, which in turn magnetizes circumstances that match this state. Life begins to respond with ease, flow, and unexpected synchronizations, demonstrate that faith is not passive belief, but a dynamic, creative force. Together, the 19th and 20th keynotes teach the listener the delicate but powerful interplay between attention, inner state, and faith. Attention directs energy and focus to the desired reality. The inner state, cultivated through imagination, assumption, and inner speech, establishes the blueprint of manifestation. Faith maintains this alignment over time, ensuring that doubt or external appearances do not interfere with the unfolding of events. By mastering these principles, the listener experiences a profound transformation. They become the conscious creator of their reality, capable of orchestrating outcomes with subtlety, precision, and certainty. As the listener integrates these keynotes, life begins to feel like a mirror, reflecting their inner mastery. Circumstances, people, and opportunities no longer appear as random or unpredictable. Instead, they reflect the fidelity of attention and the depth of faith. The listener experiences synchronicities that feel deliberate, coincidences that seem orchestrated, and moments of insight that guide them toward their desired reality. This stage cultivates a deep sense of empowerment, self-trust, an alignment with the infinite creative intelligence within. Every desire, every aspiration, and every goal becomes not a distant hope, but a reality in the process of unfolding, guided by the unwavering principles of attention, inner alignment, and faith. This stage is where the listener becomes unshakable. They may hear negative news, but they no longer let it define their inner atmosphere. They may see temporary setbacks, but they do not interpret them as final. They remain rooted in the assumption of their desire because they finally understand that the physical world is always a delayed reflection. The 14 keynote teaches that persistence is not forced. It is disciplined trust. It is the art of holding the inner picture so consistently that the outer world has no choice but to mirror it. In this stage, doubt becomes weaker because belief has become a lived experience. Even if the manifestation has not yet appeared physically, the